Good day and welcome back to another Dbz Dokkan battle video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at the Frieza stage of the Ultimate Red Zone. So this is a new Ultimate Red Zone. This is the Wicked Bloodline's Ultimate Red Zone. So Frieza is quite a long fight overall. He is not entirely similar to the Shadow Dragon stage, but he is pretty tough. He's definitely a stacking stage. You can kind of tackle him with a team that scales pretty well over time. Generally speaking, you have a pretty solid build up towards him, but there are some things you do need to be aware of. So for example, in the second phase, the physical Frieza can do an AoE super attack. This is usually a very detrimental kind of ability that can occur, and it could actually give you some pretty intense, some pretty intense issues overall. Then in terms of the third phase, there's nothing too special there, but in terms of the fourth phase, Frieza does have the ability to launch multiple super attacks. So those are just some things to be aware of. Other than that, it's a pretty stock standard fight. Immune to stunning, immune to sealing, and generally that's kind of like the priority. Now fortunately, Frieza at the final stage is not as hard hitting as Cell Max, and you have some time to stack up and kind of prepare for the fight. So there's not like this kind of instant jump in difficulty. I personally find that the second phase against the AoE Frieza is the hardest one. Simply just because me personally, it comes at an early enough stage. The first phase doesn't last long enough that a lot of your units may not have built up their full defense, and a lot of your units, especially if you have units that will gain defense on super, those units are going to struggle quite heavily against the AoE. Now if you don't have units that gain defense on super, if a lot of your units are quite strong defensively right out the bat, maybe they are sitting at 250, 300k defense already, then you don't need to worry too much. If they have evasion, that's also more than fine. You just need some kind of mechanic. As you can see, we tank that turn pretty well, and obviously it's not a huge issue, but it is just something I personally point out because it can be quite challenging for some people. Now obviously I'm using the Ginyu Force. The Ginyu Force are obviously a very good team that's taken on many Red Zone stages. By default, they just really work quite well. Personally speaking, obviously, I just thought I'd give the Ginyu Force a try here. There is some great teams you can build here. The Super Saiyan team is becoming vastly more effective now. Namek Goku is a great addition here. He does crit attacks. He's fantastic. Huge damage, obviously stacking defense. You've got Bardock. Bardock's a great option. He stacks his defense once he transforms. He has that damage reduction. He has that guaranteed criticals against the Wicked Bloodlines type. So he's got a pretty decent kit in that perspective. The brand new Tech Goku as well, also an incredibly strong unit. So yeah, just overall, a very, very decent kind of option. So you can go Super Saiyan team, which is getting stronger by the second. You can go for the Ginyu Force team. The Movie Heroes team is very strong now with the Strength Piccolo as a very, very good option. So yeah, just generally speaking, you're usually okay. I would refrain from bringing AGL units as much as possible. You can tend to see them get hit quite hard in the final phase. Even Ginyu, which is a unit that will have 900,000, a million defense, and will have 50% evasion, even he will get rocked by the Tech full power Frieza in the final phase. So it is just advised to try and avoid AGL units if possible. Obviously, sometimes it is unavoidable, but generally speaking, me personally, I would just say try a different team, or try and build your team around the concept of not having a huge amount of AGL units. If you can do that, you should be fine. But obviously, you know, it is unavoidable. If it's unavoidable, you can have one or two, but I would just say, be careful. I would just say be very careful, essentially, to like where you place those AGL units. Having the ability to foresee where super attacks are is going to be able to help you quite a lot. Frieza does hit relatively hard. I think he hits at about 1.4 million on the super. So even an AGL unit with 1 million defense is going to get hit huge by that. I think, you know, you do just need to be aware of that, basically. But yeah, it's not too bad at the end of the day. I think overall this event is quite nice with the ability to stack with the multiple different phases. I think it gives you ample enough time to kind of handle the situation at hand. And I think that's pretty good. Me personally, obviously, like, it's not the hardest one. I think it's a fairly constructed fight. I think, for the most part, Red Zone Frieza is quite a fair fight in terms of standard. You know, the AoE in the second phase can catch a couple people off guard if you're not aware of it. The double super attacks in the fourth phase can cause you some problems, and the tech phase gives AGL units a couple issues. But generally speaking, overall, the fight is fairly straightforward in the sense that you're not going to, lose your mind attempting this one. It doesn't feel unfair like some of the other fights, and generally speaking, even with AGL units, you should be okay if you've managed to keep or retain some items for that final phase. So yeah, generally speaking, it was a pretty decent stage. I actually found it to be a pretty fun one. Caught me off guard once or twice, and then once you figured out the little gimmicks that it has, you're generally okay, and you're not really struggling too much. With that being said, obviously guys, some people struggle with this more than others, and obviously the Ginyu Force is a strong team, but because of the phases, because of how much health each of them have, look, you can see Ginyu is stacking up really easily in this event. You should be fine. Like, if you bring a whole kind of stacking team, very similar to the Hybrid Saiyans one I used for Shadow Dragons, very similar to the Super Saiyan one, you should have a pretty decent time, and you shouldn't really struggle too much with the event. Now, obviously, you might get caught by surprise. The unit, there's always a chance that the AGL unit could be decimated in the final phase. There's plenty that could happen, but generally speaking, you should be okay. Some things are always unavoidable. You can always get bad luck, but yeah, it gives you plenty of time to kind of get whatever unit you need to get going. Some of the older units, like, in terms of like maybe a Super Saiyan Trunks, Super Saiyan Trunks or Bardock may struggle a little bit to kind of, stack fast enough. But even then, depending on your team, they should have enough time. Like, for example, it also depends on your dupes. Usually, you'll end up with one unit failing to stack if your whole team is stacking units. It's a mistake a lot of people make. Your whole team does not need to be stacking units. Try and just bring 3 anchor units that you can leave floating that are decently kind of defensively strong. Whether it's something like Strength Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta or AGL Super Saiyan 4 Goku, units that after Super have a very, very high level of defense, maybe have a mechanism against getting supered, and yeah, generally speaking, just give you guys kind of, a decent time, basically. Give you a very, very decent kind of like, kind of stronghold to kind of take on the event, or at least not get killed, or provide some kind of utility, like Jace here providing the ability to see where super attacks are going. It is just generally how it is. So yeah, I think personally speaking, that is kind of everything in terms of team building. Barring that, again, just be wary of AGL units because they can be caught out. Now obviously the final phase against the Tech Frieza is the hardest phase. Tech Frieza obviously being a pretty tough enemy to take, a pretty tough enemy to handle. But yeah, I think generally speaking, it's not too difficult. Like we're using the Jason Berta to tank here. They have type advantage. Obviously we have a Whis active. You can see we still take a lot of damage. That is something that's not unavoidable, I want to say, but Frieza hits hard. It's why you want to prioritize taking that damage on units like Jason Berta rather than taking that damage in a situation where you could potentially die. Like Ginyu would have taken possibly even more damage, or roughly the same at this current point in time. Ginyu really needs to be at like the 1.2 million mark to be able to survive a super attack. It's just not something, not that you can't get there, you can definitely get there, but it's just not really something that's needed. If you play around it properly, if you get Jace involved, for example, and just see where the super attacks are coming. If you use Ginyu's transformation like we are now, generally speaking, you shouldn't have huge issues. You still can, but generally speaking, you shouldn't have a huge problem, at least from my perspective. But yeah, personally speaking, I think everything looks pretty good. Everything looks pretty strong in this team. Ginyu team's always a very strong team to take on any challenge. And I think, personally speaking, it can obviously be, challenging for other teams. And I respect that. It's not, just because it's easy for the Ginyu Force or they're a team that's well built to manage it, doesn't mean that it's going to be easy for other teams. And I can respect that, and I think that is something that obviously, we all need to factor in when you are building teams. But you also have teams that will have bigger damage output. In Namek Goku, for example, is going to be critting the whole way through. Bardock will be critting as well. This generally means not that they're safe from taking damage, but what it does mean is it just means that you're going to be chunking through Frieza a lot faster. Your possibility of getting hit by a super attack is a lot lower if you finish the phases a lot quicker. And that's where damage comes in. You can go bunker builds, and the Ginyu Force is a nice mixture of between bunker builds and obviously damage, because of the fact that Ginyu himself does such a tremendous amount of damage. But with that being said, full out damage builds can still work super duper efficiently, and are something that's going to work really well for a lot of people. So don't feel too aggrieved, by basically, how can I say, don't feel too aggrieved if your team doesn't come off, or if you do it with something else, or if you fail a couple times. Even with the Ginyu Force, I failed once, because AoE super attacks. I didn't know Frieza did an AoE super attack, and he took out my team, and I wasn't properly prepped, and Jason Berta didn't dodge the attack, and I took too much damage, and I just couldn't recover. That does happen. Sometimes you can just get hit by the AoE super attack 2 turns in a row, and you haven't prepped, your units haven't stacked, and you know what, you're dead. Or you're too low on health that you can never truly recover. It is what it is, yeah? It's never just because you fail at an event once or twice, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are bad or that your team build won't work in future. It just means that, you know, at the time, you are currently getting a little bit unlucky with your RNG. And that's really about it when it comes down to it at the end of the day. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the Frieza event. Obviously, I wish you guys the best of luck. I hope that you have a great time taking it on. And yeah, if you need any help, leave a comment down below and I'll gladly give you some feedback. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I much appreciate it. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, you can leave a like on it. And if you didn't, you can leave a dislike or let me know in the comments. But yeah, that is Frieza done. First of 2 new red zone stages. I have completed Cooler, but he was bugged at the time, so I will be rerunning that one. Just basically with him not being bugged, so that it's actually a fair representation of what the event is supposed to be, because otherwise it's bloody pointless. But yeah, that's it from me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.